For more than a century, this river did not really behave like a river. It smelled like sewage. It carried industrial waste. It ran through one of Europe's most powerful industrial regions like an open wound made of concrete and dirty water. People living near it learned to keep their windows closed. Children were warned not to go near it. Fish could not survive in it. Birds had little reason to stop here in the heart of Germany's Ruhr region. The Emscher became known as one of the dirtiest rivers in Europe, not because nature failed, but because an entire industrial society decided the river was the cheapest place to put everything it did not want to see. And then, something almost unbelievable happened. Germany did not simply cover it up. It did not pretend the damage was gone. It spent decades digging beneath cities, moving wastewater underground, tearing concrete away, rebuilding streams, and slowly giving this dead river a second life. This is not a simple story about planting trees beside water. It is a story about coal, steel, sewage, engineering, patience, and the long, expensive work of undoing more than 100 years of damage. And by the end of it, the question is not just how the Emscher came back. The question is whether other broken rivers around the world could follow the same path. To understand the Emscher, you have to understand the Ruhr. This region was once one of the engines of modern Europe. Coal came from underground. Steel came from giant furnaces. Rail lines, factories, workers' housing, canals, and power plants spread across the landscape. Cities grew so close together that from above, they almost looked like one continuous machine. In that machine, the Emscher was not treated as a living river. It was treated as infrastructure, a place where wastewater could be moved away from homes and factories as quickly as possible. The river was straightened, deepened, armored with concrete, and turned into a drainage channel. Its natural bends were removed. Its floodplains were cut off. Its banks became steep, hard walls. What had once been a small, winding lowland river became part sewer, part flood channel, part industrial scar. But there was another reason the Emscher became so polluted. In many cities, wastewater is carried underground through sewer pipes. In the Ruhr's mining landscape, that was extremely difficult. Coal mining caused the ground to sink in unpredictable ways. Underground pipes could crack, break, and leak, so instead of hiding sewage underground, the region pushed it into open channels above ground. The Emscher and many of its tributaries became an open wastewater system. Human waste, industrial discharge, stormwater, and urban runoff all moved through the same exposed network. The river was not only dirty, it was dangerous. It carried disease risk, it smelled, it was fenced off from everyday life. The people of the Ruhr lived near the Emscher, but they did not live with it, they endured it. For decades, the old Emscher was almost the opposite of what Americans might imagine when they hear the word river. There were no families fishing from the banks, no clean wetlands full of frogs and reeds, no quiet walking trail where people came to clear their minds after work. The river was something to avoid. It was a boundary, a smell, a warning. In some places, it looked more like a concrete trench than a natural waterway. And because the Ruhr was so densely populated, this damaged river was not hidden in a remote industrial zone. It ran through neighborhoods near schools, roads, bridges, and workers' homes. The Emscher was a daily reminder of the cost of industrial prosperity. Then the Ruhr began to change. Coal mining declined. Heavy industry shrank. The same forces that had made the region rich were no longer shaping every part of its future, and that created a rare opportunity. If the ground was no longer sinking the way it had during active mining, then underground sewer systems became possible again. The region could finally separate sewage from the river, but saying that was easy. Doing it was one of the most ambitious urban water projects in Europe. The Emscher could not be healed by one cleanup day, one park, or one symbolic ribbon-cutting ceremony. The entire system had to be rebuilt from below. The key idea was simple but massive. Take the wastewater out of the river. Build a new underground sewer network that could carry sewage safely to treatment plants. Let the Emscher carry water again instead of waste. Across the region, engineers planned tunnels, pumping stations, treatment facilities, and underground conduits. Some of this infrastructure had to pass beneath roads, railways, neighborhoods, and old industrial land. It was not glamorous. It was not the kind of environmental work that looks beautiful on day one. Much of the real restoration happened underground, in dark tunnels most people would never see. But without that hidden engineering, the visible river above could never come back. This is why the Emscher story matters. Many people think river restoration begins with plants, stones, fish, and pretty riverbanks. But in a polluted industrial basin, restoration often begins with plumbing. You have to ask the uncomfortable question first. Where does the waste go? If sewage is still entering the river every day, no amount of landscaping can make the ecosystem healthy. So the Ruhr built the expensive, invisible foundation of recovery. Wastewater was redirected into closed systems. Treatment plants took over the work the river had been forced to do for generations. Only after that could the Emscher begin to function like a river again. Once the wastewater was separated, the second phase could begin. Giving the river space and shape for more than a century, the Emscher and its tributaries had been forced into hard, straight channels. That made sense for drainage, but it was terrible for life. Natural rivers need rough edges. They need shallow areas, deeper pools, gravel, mud, plants, side channels, and slow backwaters. They need places where insects can hatch, where fish can hide, where birds can feed, and where floodwater can spread without destroying everything nearby. So restoration teams began removing concrete. In many places, they softened banks, widened channels, created new stream profiles, and rebuilt sections of tributaries into more natural forms. The goal was not to rewind history perfectly. In a dense urban region, that would be impossible. The goal was to make the river livable again. And this is where the story becomes more human. The Emscher was not restored in a wilderness. It runs through a crowded, post-industrial landscape. Highways, rail lines, housing blocks, factories, warehouses, and old industrial sites are still there. This river did not get a blank canvas. It had to come back inside a living city region. That makes the project less romantic, but more important. Because most damaged rivers in the modern world are not hidden in national parks. They are next to people. They run behind apartment blocks, under bridges, beside roads, and through places where land is expensive and political decisions are complicated. The Emscher shows that restoration does not always mean removing humans from the landscape. Sometimes it means redesigning the relationship between people, water, waste, and space. For people who grew up near the old Emscher, the change is not abstract. It is sensory. The smell is different. The sound is different. The riverbanks no longer feel like forbidden infrastructure. In some areas, people can walk, cycle, pause, and look at the water without feeling like they are standing beside a sewer. That may sound simple, but it changes how a city feels. A river that once lowered the value of nearby life can become a corridor of movement, cooling, memory, and public space. The Emscher did not become the Amazon. It did not become a perfect wild river untouched by humans, but it became something far more meaningful for this place. A river people could approach again. Ecologically, recovery is slower than construction. A tunnel can be finished on a schedule. A treatment plant can be switched on. But life returns in stages. First, the water quality improves. Then aquatic insects begin to appear. Plants colonize the banks. Birds notice the new habitat. Fish can move into places where they once had no chance. Scientists monitor the water, the sediments, the species, and the structure of the riverbed. They do not expect instant perfection because ecosystems have memory. Pollution leaves chemical traces. Concrete channels erase habitat complexity. Urban rivers face heat, runoff, and flood pressure. But the direction of change matters. A river once described as biologically dead now has sections where life can return and expand. The timeline is important because it keeps the story honest. The Emscher was not cleaned overnight. This was a generation-long project. Planning and restoration work began around the early 1990s. The underground sewage system and related infrastructure took decades. The investment reached billions of euros. The river was declared free of wastewater only after the major sewer system came online, and Even then, the work was not completely finished. Some sections still need ecological improvement. Some channels remain constrained. Some habitats will take years to mature. That is the real lesson. Serious restoration is not a viral moment. It is long-term public commitment. In the age of quick environmental headlines, the Emscher is almost uncomfortable because it refuses to be simple. It was expensive. It was technical. It required public institutions, local communities, engineers, ecologists, planners, and decades of coordination across many municipalities. It required accepting that the old industrial system had created a problem too large for small fixes, and it required patience from people who might never see the full result in their own lifetime. That is not a weakness of the story. That is the point. Some damage is so deep that restoration has to become a public project across generations. There is also a hidden tension in this project. The Emscher became more natural because of highly artificial systems. The river could breathe again because tunnels, pumps, treatment plants, and monitoring networks took over the dirty work. That may sound contradictory, but it is the reality of urban restoration. In a region with millions of people, nature does not return simply because humans step away. Humans must first stop the damage, manage the waste, reduce the pressure, and create conditions where natural processes can function again. The Emschers is not a story of abandoning technology. It is a story of using technology to stop abusing nature. The Ruhr itself was also trying to redefine its identity. For generations, this region was associated with coal, steel, smoke, and heavy labor. Those histories still matter. They built cities and shaped communities. But after the industrial decline, the Ruhr needed new spaces, new symbols, and new reasons for people to see value in the landscape. A restored river can do more than support wildlife. It can help a region imagine itself differently. It can turn abandoned or damaged corridors into public routes. It can connect neighborhoods. It can cool urban areas during hot summers. It can create places where people see that post-industrial land does not have to remain a scar forever. That is why river experts around the world pay attention to the Emscher. Not because every city can copy it exactly. Many places do not have the same money, institutions, or political structure. Some rivers face different pollutants, different climates, and much faster urban growth, but the basic principle travels well. You cannot restore a river while still using it as a sewer. You cannot rebuild ecology without rebuilding the systems that surround it. You cannot ask fish, reeds, birds, and insects to return if the water is still carrying untreated waste every day. The Emscher teaches a hard truth. Environmental recovery often begins far from the postcard image. Still, the story should not be exaggerated. The Emscher is not a pristine wilderness. It remains an urban river shaped by human decisions. Some parts are still engineered. Some stretches are still limited by roads, buildings, flood protection, and old industrial land. Restoration does not erase history. It does not make pollution never happen. It does not bring back every lost habitat in exactly the same form. But it can change the future of a place. It can turn a river from a channel of waste into a corridor where life has a chance, and after more than a century of damage. That is not a small achievement. One of the most powerful parts of the Emscher transformation is that it changes what people expect. If a child grows up seeing only a fenced-off, polluted channel, that child may learn to think of rivers as dangerous infrastructure. But if the same place becomes a living waterway, the next generation learns something different. They learn that damage can be repaired, but not casually. They learn that water systems are connected to city planning, industry, public health, and climate resilience. They learn that a river is not just a line on a map, it is a living system, and when that system is broken, the consequences reach far beyond the water. The Emscher restoration also matters in a hotter, wetter, more unpredictable climate. Urban regions need places for water to go. They need green corridors that can reduce heat and help manage heavy rainfall. A concrete drainage channel can move water quickly, but it often does little for biodiversity, cooling, or public life. A more natural river corridor can serve multiple purposes at once. It can carry water, support habitat, offer recreation, and make the city more resilient. The Emscher's recovery is not only about fixing the past, it is also about preparing the Ruhr for a different future. For the people of the Ruhr, the Emscher is now more than an environmental case study. It is a changed daily landscape. A place that once separated people from water can now reconnect them to it. A river that was once treated as the backside of industry can become part of the region's public face. And perhaps that is why this story feels so relevant beyond Germany. Many cities have rivers they are embarrassed by. Rivers hidden behind walls, buried under roads, poisoned by old industry, or reduced to drainage ditches. The Emscher says those rivers are not necessarily lost forever, but it also says the repair will demand more than optimism. In the end, the Emscher River is not important because it became perfect. It is important because it was once written off. For generations, it was treated as a sewer, a sacrifice zone, a necessary cost of progress. Then the Ruhr made a different decision. It built the tunnels, it cleaned the wastewater, it opened the banks. It allowed the river to become water again, and now, where people once smelled sewage and saw only concrete, there are places where birds land. Plants grow, cyclists pass, and the current moves through the city with a different meaning. Europe's dirtiest river was not saved by a miracle. It was saved by responsibility, the kind that takes decades, costs billions, and leaves behind something far more valuable than a clean headline. It leaves behind a living river,